One of the things that I've been really interested with, doing some reading on recent stories and things that you've been involved with, is you did an excellent outline of what you feel we should be doing in popular mechanics recently.
That's right. I did.
It was really great.
Well, and one of the things have changed a little bit since then. To trying to be a little bit more inspiring and deal with some things that maybe have changed in the interim from when I at any one particular time you may come up with solutions that are dependent on what's available. Now, when I came up with my first version of the the near-term changes, why we still had about 5 shuttle flights left. So I feel, well, instead of just flying them as fast as we can, let's stretch them out, and then we can build something that's based on the shuttle launch system. But there are only 2 flights left, maybe another one, and so it has shifted to, let's finish that as soon as we can. Let's embark on newer technology, and it's sort of like what the president said. Let's take our time in 2015, really start working on the next booster that we need, and in the meantime we can use the Air Force, because NASA came up with their solution, and it was too expensive, and 2 different kinds of launch vehicles, and like so many proposals in the past, it just didn't pan out. So now's the time to rethink, and don't just try and keep doing the same thing you've been doing. Many people who are working on something that you've decided it's time to terminate, they don't want to stop working. And they would like their congressman to protect their interests. So now we're talking about votes and short-term objectives versus long-term leadership in space for the investment that so many people did to get us to the moon. We need to keep that going. And it's really so much modern technology is moving and changing so fast that things are compressed so much. And the world is just thinking in terms of small objectives. It just so happens that building a rocket and some of the safe things of transporting humans takes a long time to do, and you have to set out to do that. The high technology world inspires the need for dealing with disadvantaged children, Make-A-Wish. So we use one thing to kind of bring along it, and I've tried to use the same idea of going into space with Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic is expensive, $200,000. Going into orbit with the Russians, because Americans don't just sell seats or rides into space, but the Russians will. $30 million, not very many people. But if you can market by having a lottery, but make a lottery non-gambling. In other words, it's an experience. And you use it or you lose it. You can't sell it. You can't give it to somebody else. You can't sell it to anybody else. And so that's what I'm going to be experimenting on in the near future.
Sounds great.
And I'm trying in my way of long-range thinking to trying to be innovative, just like the high-tech guys are that just naturally got into advanced technology while we were still thinking about slide rules and cycling orbits between Earth and Mars, and those big picture, those are my contributions. But I appreciate all the different gizmos, including Bluetooth and.
One thing I was thinking is when we sort of look back, something like the lunar module was kind of incredibly basic by today's standards, but it was kind of the right tool for the job.
Extremely efficient in the use of memory. To think of the megabits and all that you have in memory now, and a little thing you can plug in the side of your computer, and think of the limited number of kilobits that we had to write a program to take a star sighting and line the platform, turn on the engine, then make the guidance and make a landing on the surface, and taking radar altimeter readings. wow, that's pretty difficult to do.
Sort of too many
And
bells and
clearly,
whistles.
all of that from just getting into orbit with the right speed and then maneuvering, doing the reverse of that at a place like the moon, making a landing is clearly the most challenging thing. And it's a piece of cake opening the hatch, going down a ladder and walking around. But that's not the way the public sees it.
Yeah.
See, I don't think very many people understand, first, how many people reach the moon, and how many of those that reach the moon actually walked on the surface. You get away from something that's 40, 50 years away, and if you weren't around, you miss some of the big meaning. The big meaning, to me, right now, what made Apollo work is we took specialized spacecraft, 2 of them. And that let us use just 1 rocket. But when we were going to use a big spacecraft to land and do everything, going there, coming back, that took a very big spacecraft. We needed 2.
Yeah.
And that's remarkable to use 1 rocket to have 2 spacecraft instead of 2 rockets with 1 spacecraft.
Yeah.
Specialized spacecraft, that means commercial spacecraft up and down, not government, not NASA, and then NASA, that's not the way we've been planning on going to Mars.
Yeah.
So these things are new, they're innovative, and the world resists change. We have a word for it, an acronym, NIH, not invented here. If an idea wasn't discovered or created by the government, it can't be any good because they're supposed to do that. And they got a big company and they're supposed to think of these ideas. They don't want somebody on the outside coming in.
I've heard you you were actually had your name on a video game back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then you
It was very pioneering. They looked at the race to go to the moon, and they patterned it after the spacecraft and the capabilities that the U.S. and the Russians had, and everybody knew how it worked out and how it didn't work out.
Yeah.
So it wasn't quite that flexible a challenge.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite like Monopoly. You know what that game is? You shake the dice. It wasn't quite as standardized and had the real test of time. Stephen Hawking talks about the natural competitiveness and aggressive of the creature called human. Okay, and we have more and more damaging weapons available, and he's afraid that we can threaten the existence of humankind here, whether it's artificial from an asteroid that hits us. And dinosaurs didn't have a space program, and they lost out.
Yeah. Do you feel like international and private cooperation in getting into space, is that something that you feel is going to be important for kind of humanity
it's very
ultimately getting along?
important for nations and groups of people to do something first. And then having done something first, whatever it is we want to exploit or develop. Okay, we've been to the moon. We need to not put big, expensive efforts in going back there again, as it's going to be costly. Because you can't just do little things, you got to do bigger things, because that was 40 years ago. And how much do you gain by kind of going back there? You need the firsts. But China needs a first for all their peasants, and India has got even more. Well, they need to accomplish things to give a sense of pride and inspiration, just like we did in contrary to the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And you ask me why we demonstrated to them that they couldn't keep up with us, and if we're going to defend against their missiles, like Gorbachev said. Like President Reagan said, Gorbachev realized that they couldn't match a determined push into high technology to defend against missiles. So he realized they had to kind of reorder, regroup.
Yeah.
Nobody thought Soviet Union was going to come apart before the year 2000.
Yeah.
But they did,
Yeah.
and I attribute a good bit of it to the long-range thinking and realization that we got to the moon first. You don't see the Russians trying to go back to the moon.
Yeah.
but they're leading
Yeah.
the efforts. They are some of the basic ones.
You say
to go to
they've
Mars.
been looking at Phobos up in
They've
Mars
tried
longer than we
many
have.
times to have a successful mission, and last October, almost a year ago, they were scheduled to launch a very complicated, complex Phobos grunt mission to bring a sample of the moon of Mars, Phobos, back. And now it has a Chinese satellite payload on it, and they've negotiated sharing samples with the French, and we're sitting back here in the U.S. thinking of what are we going to do when they go to the moon. That's why I'm trying to change things.
Yeah, I mean, you speak really inspirationally about a lot of these things, and I noticed, like, I've heard you use the sort of the boldly go phrase from Star Trek and things. Do you feel like science fiction is one of those areas where, and video games as well now, of course, that helps inspire the next generation to have this passion?
Well, it certainly thinks of things into the unconventional. The location, who are the competitive organizations. We have to dream up something and then be consistent with that, and conduct some kind of a competitiveness with somebody else, some other player, or with the way the system is set up in the game. I've had a lot of other things to do than to become very familiar with video games. I've tried to keep up with communications and the state of the space station, the space shuttle, and where we think we're going, and that kept me pretty darn busy.
I think
there are a number of my contemporaries that don't even have a cell phone.
Well, I figure somebody who's been to the moon probably has an excuse for not sitting down and pretending that they're going to go to the moon.
Well, some are kind of macho, and they feel if they were pilots before going to the moon, they got to keep flying the rest of their life. I don't feel I need to do that if it's more than my finances can handle, and if I have to keep up with a lot of rules and regulations in the local Los Angeles area, and if it doesn't take me where I need to go, which is LA to Washington and back. I don't need that. I don't need to be macho.
Yeah.
I got in the racing car business once in the Long Beach Grand Prix as an amateur, and I learned a lot. I didn't have to win. I certainly didn't expect to win in Dancing with the Stars, but I do things so that it's part of my achievement of be all that you can be in your life. You've got one life, and these opportunities come along. And because I have been to the moon, I get even more opportunities, and I can use those productively by taking somebody who watches TV reality shows like dancing to think about what we did in the past, because of Buzz Aldrin went to the moon in the past, and they think about the future.
Yeah.